Welcome to The Fix,
the new way to get your copy reviewed by two former copy chiefs.
because whether you're an aspiring copywriter or you've been in the industry for decades,
The best way to improve your work isn't to read books, blog posts, or online guides.
it's to see real writing, your writing, being reviewed and improved in front of your eyes.
And that's the goal of The Fix, to bring you inside a virtual writer's room
And watch along as we review, edit and rewrite real copy.
from real writers like you. So let's get straight into this week's episode. And remember, if you like what you see here,
Please share The Fix with anyone you think would find it valuable. It is completely free. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Fix. Now, we've had a ton of questions over the past few weeks, so rather than take each individual question and do a whole episode on it, we thought we'll try and cover as many of them as we can over the next episode or two. So, Glenn, the challenge is you've got to answer each question in 2 minutes, preferably less. If you can answer it in a word or a sentence, that's even better. But if either of us talk for more than 2 minutes, I mean, we don't
Just get shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We should have asked for there to be a klaxon, a copy klaxon.
no, I thought about this morning because I thought about the phrase "all aboard the brevity bus," which I kind of enjoy. And I thought, shall I buy a little 2-minute clock? But we'll just.
No, let's not do that. But very much all aboard the brevity bus. Right, we'll take it in turns. We've both got the questions. I'm going to ask first.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Right. Okay. You need to find an idea. Where do you go?
So there are two places you can find ideas officially, absolutely, and it is in the product itself or in the person that you are selling to. Everything around those is what you would find. So even if you're looking at magazines, all this kind of stuff, you can go anywhere in the world, but it will always come back to either the product or the person. That is my answer for where to find ideas. People always kind of say, "Oh, I need to go and look at this. I need to. What do you do? Are you reading this? Are you watching that?" You're doing all of that, but it's the key thing. Kind of rephrasing the question is, where do you find it? You need to find it in relation to the product or the person. That's going to be my brevity bus answer. Is that too short?
No, that's good. That's good.
There we go.
You've got to go now straight into the
Right.
next
Okay.
question.
Okay. So, how long has this been going on? How long should a sales letter be?
It depends what you're selling. Obviously, the price is important, but I would say the more abstract the product you're selling, the longer you will need to sell somebody on that product. So if the product is well known, well understood, and therefore easy to grasp, you can probably go very, very short. That's why magazines, wine, things like that are often direct mail, but a direct offer, short pitch with a bit of extra detail. If you're selling something like a financial product or like a trading product or something that's more abstract, something that takes time for you to even explain what it is, you might well need a lot longer. So everything that I sell tends to be very abstract. It's financial publishing, it's trading, it's things like that. Therefore, I would say I need half an hour minimum, probably 45 minutes to an hour if you're thinking in terms of scripts, sort of 6,000 to 10,000 words. If what you're selling is really well known, like toilet roll, you probably only need 4 words, toilet roll, half price, because we all know what that is. That's my answer.
I accept it.
Right, next question. What is the best piece of copywriting advice you've ever received?
That's a really hard question, which we're not meant to say, but I'm going to go with something really crap and obvious, but I'm going to go with kill your darlings, kind of that whole idea of getting rid of stuff that you think is really, really good and really nice, but that's generally the stuff that you should probably get rid of. And if you take that on board, I'm thinking about all the writing I do, from copywriting to like fiction writing, everything. Whenever it's like, oh yeah, I've done something really clever here, usually that's too far and you're actually working in a much more abstract way. When it comes to copywriting, you need to be direct and sell and do these things. So be aware of when you like something too much.
Who gave you that piece of advice?
I'm gonna credit that to John Ford. That's the other reason I chose that, because I'm trying to think of advice, and in a very Mark Ford way, I kind of claim everything I've just discovered myself. But that I specifically remember the moment, I think I've talked about it before, when he said, "This is the best thing I've seen you write. You need to delete it." And it was that kind of like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's a really good thing, but it's taking away from the letter. Yeah. So yeah, John Ford gave me that, I think. But yeah, that's the best piece of advice I've given.
Right, you go.
That is my question. What is the question? How do you know when you've got the right idea?
Well, that's really difficult because you might feel like it just works for you and doesn't work for anybody else. You can write something and it feels like it comes out of the middle of the bat, but until it goes in front of somebody else and they feedback on it, you can't know. So I would say there's two ways of answering that. One, when somebody else that you trust and whose opinion you value validates it, preferably more than one person. So you need a couple of people, 2 or 3 people in your life whose opinions you really trust, who you can send copy to. And if they say, yeah, this sort of smells right, then, because it cannot just be you. And then the other thing is to just go right back to your customer. So you can drift off into the idea space and think, oh, this is fantastic. This is a great piece of work. This is about, oh, this is going to light up the world. And it's all about, there's all this thing going on all over the world, but you need to pull it back to the customer, imagine them drinking a cup of tea, grumpy face on, they want to go out, they get your advert. Why does it matter to them? And you've got to be really cynical in the way that you think about that, because you yourself can get wrapped up in the creativity of the process. So validate it through a third party that you trust, and then really think about your customer and ask yourself, when they'd really rather be doing something else, why is this going to insert itself into their life and get them going? Because if it doesn't do that, then it's not good. It doesn't matter what you think.
It's the hardest bit, but that's what you need to do. It's your question, isn't it?
Yep. Right. Next question. What words should you never use in a headline?
Beep. Well, there's obviously some swear words. I wouldn't ever use a swear word in a headline, but that's a rubbish answer. You should. I'm not going to say there's a specific word, but I'm rambling, so I'll pick something more useful. Never use words that insinuate working and having to do work to achieve the outcome of what you want that reader to come by. That was a good piece of advice I once got.
Like what?
Like the word work. There's this little thing that you need to do to work this thing, or anything that's kind of like an active word that makes you feel like, oh, I've got to go and do this. So if it's a word that makes you think you've got to go and do something to achieve the end, in a headline, that's probably going to be a negative thing. Find a way to make it feel like you will naturally achieve these things, or like you will attract it rather than having to work. And the reason I choose that is because in copywriting and in headlines specifically, you will often find that you naturally lean to like, oh, this quick little thing that you have to do X. And that feels like a headline. That feels like, oh yeah, it's this quick little thing that you have to do. But just saying quick little thing doesn't take away from the impact that the work-related word will actually have going, oh, I've still got to do that. How do I know it's quick for me? How do I know that that's going to be easy? Because you've not sold me on the concept and the idea yet. It's a headline. I've just grabbed you and I've gone, that word, get rid of quick because that's an invisible word. Get rid of little thing because that's an invisible word. It doesn't mean anything yet. But I've seen the word work, or the work associated word. Now I'm thinking, oh, can I be bothered? No, I've got 5 seconds to read this. No, I'm off. So any word that kind of associates and insinuates without you realizing maybe, well, it's just a little self-edit and go, is there a more active word that I can use that will give the feel of natural attraction, or show the easiness rather than tell the easiness?
I'll give you a little bonus add-on there. I would say never use the word guarantee in a headline unless it is a guarantee.
Unless it's spelt guaranteed.
Guaranteed, no. But I see a lot of copywriters saying, obviously the word guarantee is powerful, which it is, but only if it's true. So if it is a genuine guarantee, it's legally guaranteed in that sense, or it is guaranteed by the company and that's ironclad and unbreakable, in those contexts, use it because it's the most powerful word you can use. If it's anything short of that, don't use it because you are lying. It isn't.
I guess you could extend that to any words that intimate a legal or like a guaranteed thing. I know it's the same thing, but anything that kind of you are kind of even in your head using the quotation marks.
Sort of guaranteed.
It's this. No, any word that has quotation marks around it.
It's like using the word pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not.
That was a pregnant pause there.
You're either pregnant or you're not.
Yeah.
There's only, you can't be a little bit.
Yeah.
It's either all or nothing. So it's either is guaranteed or it isn't. It can't be somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Right, we're rambling.
Yeah.
Let's look at the next question.
Should you always have a PS in a sales letter and in an email? Should there be a PS?
I would say yes, because if you look at the tracking, if you look at heat mapping, generally people scroll down to the bottom of a letter, or the modern form of the PS would be something at the end of a video, something at the end of a webinar, some little bonus. It's almost like after the credits have run, like a lot of people will watch a film and they'll, if they're a bit of a geek, they'll stay until the end of the I bet you do this.
Yeah, of course.
Stay in the cinema until the end of the credits to see if there's anything that comes at the end.
I literally, whilst waiting, will search to find out if there's a post-credit scene on my phone and then sit and wait.
Exactly. So there is a space, and there's a reason for that. I don't quite know why that is, but there is a compelling desire to see things to the end and then to be sort of rewarded for that. So you might give them something of high value right at the end.
Yep.
Could be in the financial world, it's often like a free trade or a bonus or a bit of a Q&A or something that didn't quite fit into the main idea. So yeah, I would generally have one in everything. If you can, certainly in an email because people will scroll down to the bottom. Yep. But give somebody that little bit of sweetness at the end of a video.
To clarify that, you've kind of said it, but also make sure what you do in the PS is slightly different. It's new information, a new angle, or if you can give a bonus or something, but make sure it's different, not just, by the way, I said this earlier on, I need to make sure I got this point across. It's something new.
See it as a reward, I would say. Reward the reader for especially in a long form piece of copy, perhaps not an email, but a long video, a long sales letter. Give them something at the end that's a little bit different, a little bit of a reward of high value, because at the very least, it rewards them for being there at the end. But also if you're advertising to the same customers over and over again, then it gives them that reason to keep watching because they know, at the end, something good might come up. So.
And just because the question had email in as well, don't do the same PS every time. No. That's the real thing. Make sure it's always different. Right,
blog posts. You're the blog post king, apparently.
Okay.
You're certainly of the two of us.
Yep.
How long should a blog post be?
As long as it takes to achieve what the aim of the blog post should be. That said, I will also qualify that so if you're doing a big piece of cornerstone content and you want everything in your website or whatever to come back to that post, then that might be 3,000, 4,000 words. That said, most blog posts these days are there to just quickly engage and keep someone on your site and get them to somewhere else quickly, at which point there becomes a attention deficit thing. So I'd usually find around 800 to 1,500 words is kind of maximum for a blog post. That said, you can do a short one that's a few hundred words or even less. If it gets the point across that you're trying to make, the point might be brevity, and therefore a short blog post makes that point. But ultimately, behind that question is the real answer is, why are you writing that? What is the aim?
You've got to know what the aim is before you can know if you've satisfied that aim.
Exactly, yeah.
It's your turn.
My turn, so when it comes to, a lot of copy has bullet points in them. How do you strengthen your bullet points? How do you make them irresistible to the reader? I'm going
to say try and make each one into a fascination. I don't know who coined that phrase. It was another copywriter, it definitely wasn't me, said try and make each bullet point a fascination.
Is it Bensivenger?
I don't know, it could have been somebody else telling me that, but filtered through. But the way I think about it is you're looking for some little hidden hook with each bullet. So it's something you didn't know, some secret, I mean, generally it's something that could have been a headline idea, but wasn't quite strong enough. But you want something, some unresolved idea, some secret. So did you know there's, online 619 of the tax code, there's a way your dog can get you a tax rebate. Yeah. That was obviously made up, but something like, well, what was that? Something that makes the reader think, I want to find out what that thing is. So try to fix on that fascination, that how is that possible? Who did that? How can that be true? Or whatever it might be, just so that each one has a sense of a hook, a sense of drawing the reader in, either that or just make it a straight up benefit, something that's obviously and immediately of benefit to me. I would try to mix those two things up, because just a list of benefits, if it goes on too long, can start to just become a bit mind-numbing. It's like, okay, yeah, great.
I guess the thing is stop it from being information only, which I think is a lot of people will just go, I've got to get this information across because I'm tasked with doing this. I'll do it quickly in bullet points. No, don't.
There needs to be some form of dramatic tension, some sort of benefit. Okay, who are the best copywriters to read? Obviously, you're not allowed to say yourself because I know you would otherwise.
Yeah. There's a guy called GL. No. Who's the best copywriters to read? We always mention John Ford. He's a nice copywriter to read as a pleasurable experience in the sense that he writes well and you can follow it. Best copywriters to read. I like reading Dave Trott's very easy, simple. I saw him recently tweet kind of someone had complained about his writing style in like short sentences, and he said, I'm not writing to I'm not writing to the creative world. I'm writing to like normal people, which I thought it's obviously getting a little bit paranoid about it, but it's like, no, stick to your guns, write in a simple way. So I always like reading his stuff. Long copy, I mean, it's hard to find who wrote whatever. I like some of the stuff that Paolo, our friend Cabrelli, but that's just within the South Bank world. I was reading something by him recently, which was good. But yeah, I'd say like John Ford and Dave Trott are you can search them out very easily. So Dave Trott, if you don't know who he is.
And Dave Trott's books are fantastic as well.
Dave Trott's books are good, yeah.
They're about creativity and about thinking your way around creative challenges.
I like people, ultimately, I like copywriters who show how to do what you're meant to do by showing you, by doing it themselves. It's not preaching you saying you need to do sentences that are this length. They're writing about something completely different, maybe, but in sentences of that length. So it's all about like showing that thing. So I'd say John and Dave, I think. What is the best copywriting / marketing book you have ever read?
So I'm going to give two. There was two books that I forced all junior staff, especially on the creative side, to read when they started working for the company that I used to run. So that was Great Leads by John and Mark Ford, and Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. So I would recommend. I'm not a massive fan of over-reading that sort of stuff, but both of those books are fantastic. And I think the reason they're good, both of them, is they give you a very detailed framework for stuff you can try. So what I liked about Great Leads was with any piece of long form copywriting, you could say to yourself, I am going to write 6 versions of this using, I think there's either 6 or 7 ways of starting a sales letter. You can, as a writing challenge, say, I'm going to write this sales letter in that style, 7 different ways. So I'm going to do an offer lead, I'm going to story lead, a promise lead, and I like things like that because that says to me, right, I can spend 5 days doing that. That will give me 7 options or 6 options or whatever it might be, and I can then assess which one is going to be best. You may not do that as time goes on everything, but it gives you a creative structure to work within. And the same thing is true of Made to Stick, more in the way that ideas are constructed, but there are things about specificity, details, open loops. I can't remember all of them, but there are things that you can do that you say, have I constructed an open loop? If I haven't done that, how can I do that? And I like things like that. I like imposing structure. I like being rigorous in the way that I would approach writing something, because I sort of see it as like, creativity isn't this unstructured, chaotic thing. There's an element of that goes on in your brain, but you actually need to bring a structure to it that's more like exercising a muscle, or sort of working out creatively. And anything that brings that, I think, is strong. So
we say a lot to, like, we don't read a lot of copyright and marketing books and all that kind of stuff. And just to clarify on that, because I read Made to Stick many years ago, and I remember taking stuff on board from it, but I feel actually I should reread that. Like, when you find good ones, stick to them and like keep going back to them, because a 70,000 word book, you ain't taking away from one read all of that book. So, but the quality, and there's quality throughout it. It's not like a Simon Sinek one idea start why kind of thing that's finished and done. Both of those books have got loads of stuff that you can revisit. So that's...
And it's a little bit like, you know, the cliche about Shakespeare, that every 10 years you go back to it and realise he's rewritten it all because you've changed. You've brought something new to it. That is true of the best, of the best books in general. That you are the moving target. The book doesn't change, but there'll be things in there. Equally, as you develop in your career, so maybe you're training staff, so you need a way of explaining something. Maybe you've gone freelance. Maybe you're working on a different type of creativity. Maybe you've changed formats or whatever. You'll find different things depending on what you're working on.
If it's only because you like to have loads of books on your shelf, just keep buying the same version of it, and then that will give you even more, make you more interesting.
So you are talking
People
about,
will be like,
your book.
why have you got 6 copies of it? Yeah, I mean, that's my main
Your book's now
objection.
published in Chinese, I saw.
Chinese, and it's been translated into Korean.
So you can buy it in all different languages.
Yeah, and just have it all across the way. You can only read one though.
Last question before we break for the end of this episode. How long do you spend researching before you start writing?
I would spend half the time I've allocated to a particular job. So if I'm going to work on something for 2 weeks, I would actually spend a week researching it. Now that might seem weird, but actually the more I think about it, even if I was spending 2 hours writing a blog post in the afternoon, I'd spend an hour researching it. That what I'm trying to get across in the Brevity Bus answer is, or the more you research, the more the easier it will be to write that thing. So it has, if not equal weighting, it has near like half as much weighting on that. So.
Would another way of answering that to say, if when you start writing, it doesn't come easily, you probably haven't done enough research or thinking.
Yeah, I'm probably going one further to actually what the ultimate like formula for that is. But yeah, you research until you know, until you're desperate to go and write.
Yeah, and then it drops out.
Yeah, but I think you'll find that it's usually probably significantly, because that's a long time. People will probably go, what, like a week researching when you're only spending 2 weeks writing it? That doesn't make any sense. But you could probably even flip it, but like as a minimum, you need to do half as much as you're writing. I
find as well, as a sort of final underlying point, that with other writers, if they don't do enough research, so I do work with junior writers and other writers, if they don't do enough research, but they get writing quite soon, I often find it then collapses towards the end of the thing, that they didn't have something hard to fall back on. They didn't know what the core of the work was. They had gaps in their knowledge. They have to fill them in, and the project.
Yeah, and I say it from a point of kind of preaching, but it's like we need to change within the industry, within your own little office, within however you work, the mindset that as a copywriter, it's all about writing. It is the research that is as important. And as a copywriter, you need to kind of emanate that. Like when you go into a room, it's like, oh no, are you hiring me for this time? Do you understand that half of that will be me sat on my arse reading, kind of thing? And it's so important.
Right, we'll wrap this episode up there. We haven't got through, I don't know exactly how many we've got through, but we definitely haven't got through all of the questions that we've been sent in. So we'll cover the rest of the questions that you've been sending in the next episode. Like I said at the start, if you've got more questions, things you want us to cover, either in this format as a sort of quick fire-ish question and answer session, or things you want us to expand into a full episode and maybe do a full tutorial on a subject that you've heard us talking about today, that's cool. Just either send us an email or just put a comment underneath this video. We'll pick them up and we'll use them for planning future episodes. But for now, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you for part 2 of this episode sometime soon. Goodbye.
And there we have it. We hope you got something valuable out of today's episode of The Fix.
Maybe it sparked an idea or two for your next writing project. Maybe it triggered a new headline, opening line, or story to tell your reader.
Maybe it inspired you to scrap what you have and start over. Or maybe it made you want to submit your current work in progress for a little constructive feedback. If that is the case, send your copy to us at feedback@thefixcopywriting.com. Or if you don't want us to review a specific piece of writing, send us a problem you're trying to solve.
Or a challenge you want input on, and we'll do our best to help.
And remember, if you like The Fix, please do share it with other writers, business owners, and marketers.